I got
There you go.
I got in trouble for my skills last week. So lesson learned. This conversation is intended to be collaborative and supportive, and we cannot answer any questions about specific trials or research. And with that, there's Dizzy coming in. There's 18 people on the call, which is amazing. My name is Sunny Rouse. I live in Hico, Texas. And I was diagnosed 7 years ago. And this idea.
Your girls are outside.
Mute, Mom.
Such famous words. Mute, Mom.
There's my mom, not on mute.
Yeah. I'm pulling a Kate. I'm eating dinner.
Hi, Desi.
Hi, Desi.
Yeah. So we're here. Fight Film Fest came out of a book club we did 2 years ago. Started chatting it up with Carol as we were drinking beer in Maine, and she turned it into what it is. So thankful to have all of you guys here tonight. We're going to discuss hope on the horizon. And we have the Reagan family with us and Donna, which is just amazing. So I'm going to introduce Donna and kind of let her. So Donna, the great you are.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but thank you very much. So yeah, I'm just going to give you kind of a brief overview. I lost my dad to ALS in 2009. At the time, of course, it was well before the Ice Bucket Challenge, and even we as a family had no idea what ALS was. It took 18 months to get the diagnosis, and we finally took him to NYU Medical Center when 2 other neurologists said there's nothing wrong with him. He started as bulbar. So we took him to NYU Medical Center, and they said you either have a motor neuron disease or you have frontal lobe dementia, but I see no signs of dementia. I need you to come back. I have to do all these tests. And my father said, if I have a motor neuron disease, is there anything you can do for me? And he said, no. So my father said, then I'm not coming back. So he went home, and he obviously progressively got worse. And I called the doctor at NYU because we wanted to put him in a clinic, ALS clinic. And I said, look, I just need a diagnosis. Like, what do you think it is? And he said, I believe your father has ALS, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, is what he said to me. And again, having no idea what ALS was, we were like, well, gee, how bad could it be? Which, as you all well know, we soon found out how bad it was. He passed away 18 months later. He chose no medical intervention. He was a veteran, so we pretty much had everything we needed. I mean, the VA, once you get through the mounds of paperwork, they do really take care of ALS patients. And again, I mean, literally, he was walking with a walker up to 2 weeks before he passed away. So other than not being able to eat anymore, because that swallowing went, we really, honestly, didn't really need much. He had a retirement. I'm one of 7 kids. 5 of us lived in the same town. So we, all took turns taking care of him. Still had to hire home health aides here and there, but really very little. But I did have a very close friend that worked with me at the Y, who came to me and said, I think my husband is ALS, but he won't go to the doctors because we don't have insurance. And long story short, he did have ALS. He passed not long after. She had to quit her job to take care of him, and she was financially devastated. Her house was in foreclosure. She had nothing left. She had to move to North Carolina with family. And so I kind of thought to myself, wow, what do families that don't have 7 kids and all these resources do? Like, where do they turn for help? And at the time, I really didn't see much out there. So I thought, well, maybe I can do something. So I really started Hark, which was my dad's nickname. It was given to him as a kid, and how my mother always referred to him. At the same time, I left my full-time job, and I'm the executive director of Girls on the Run here in New Jersey. And so I started a nonprofit for Girls on the Run, but I wanted to help ALS patients as well. So I started like kind of both, just so I could do the Hark end, but I really wasn't sure how I was going to go about doing anything for ALS patients. Like, how do you raise money for disease that no one knows anything about? Because every time somebody asked me about my dad, I would say, oh, he has ALS. And they'd look at me like, what's that? You know, and then I would say, oh, Lou Gehrig's disease. Oh, yeah, I know about that. But, you know, no, you don't. You know Lou Gehrig's disease, but you have no idea what it does to families. Then the idea for the film, Josh, who I'm sure you all saw in the film, the one that led the hike, came to me. You know, he was an avid hiker, did all kinds of adventure stuff, and said, I want to hike the White Mountains, but I want to do it for someone other than myself. You know, I thought so much of your dad. You know, is there any way we could do this for Hark and raise money? So literally flying by the seat of my pants, I had no idea what I was doing in doing a film. Never done anything like it before. You know, it took a year to get everything together. They set out on the hike with a filmmaker who was really only with them 5 of the, I believe they were out there for 25 days. So the majority of the filming was done by Josh and Kirk with a handheld Sony Handycam. And we ended up with 100 hours of filming that had to be cut down to 27 minutes. And it took a good year to do that. And then the result, which I'm still very proud of to this day, was Hope on the Horizon. And we did our premiere at NBC Universal in New York, because the filmmaker that actually came on to finish the film, Mike Fiore, was associated with them. So we did it there. And then we did one at the Shakespeare Theater in Morristown. And so what the film has really done for us since 2013, we have taken the film all over the country, and mainly to raise money for families. So we do a lot of fundraisers for families where 100% of the proceeds that come in from that fundraiser go to the family. So a lot of the fundraisers we do, we would show the film, which was a way for us to educate the people that came to these events about ALS, as opposed to just having an event and people come make donations, but they really don't learn anything more about ALS. So it was really a way for us to do that, which we did up until COVID hit in 2020. That kind of could have put a kibosh on the in-person fundraisers. And we started then doing online fundraisers, which we are still doing today, but we did just do our first in-person fundraiser again this past Saturday and raised $65,000 for an ALS patient.
Nice.
So, and again, 100% of it, we don't take anything. We're not like GoFundMe, we don't take anything. 100% of it goes to the ALS patients. So since we finished the film, and again, me thinking, well, let's see what I can do. We've raised over $3.5 million, and it has all been given to ALS families. We are all, I mean, it's basically, I'm kind of a one-woman show. I do have some people that help me, but nobody gets paid. There's no overhead. I work from my kitchen table. So everything that comes in goes right back out again to ALS patients in need. But I would like to introduce the stars of the film. And one of them looks very, very different than he did when he was interviewed for the film. So there's 3 people on tonight that were in the film. Cara Wallum, whose husband Martin was one that we took up one of the peaks. And then there's Quinn Reagan and Kelly Reagan. And Quinn was one of the 2 boys that was interviewed. But as I said, he looks very, very different now. So I'm going to hand this over to Kelly and Quinn, and you guys can talk about your experience, and then we'll introduce Cara.
Thank you. I just want to give a quick little review. So Andrew was diagnosed when he was 39 years old. Both Briggs and Quinn was 2 and Briggs were 4 when he was diagnosed with ALS. He went from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair, a feeding tube, and an augmentative communication device in 6 months. So things happened in warp speed while raising these 2 amazing boys, 2 and 4 years old. If it wasn't for people like you in the ALS Center, I don't know how we would have survived. Amazingly, we met Josh at an event in Saratoga. He was at a booth. We went to a rec center event because we would just do anything because we could only leave the house for 2 hours at a time because we would have coverage for Andrew for 2 hours at a time. So I would take my boys to anything that was free, anything we would go to. And we were walking around. It was a sports recreation event. And here's this booth that says hope is on the horizon for ALS. I was like in shock because first of all, no one's heard of ALS and no one's out there promoting ALS. So I started talking with them and they wanted Andrew to be involved. Unfortunately, Andrew passed away 2 weeks before they were supposed to meet. But the positive thing is that Quinn and Briggs were able to be involved in the documentary, and it has been unbelievable. What you have done is amazing, and I am grateful that you are still raising awareness and funds for people that are still in the trenches battling ALS, because it truly is, you're in the trenches when you're battling ALS. There's still no cure. There's still no medicine. I think, you know, every year you hear that there's something, and I know that there's things that are going to happen soon, but we're 10 years since my husband has passed and there's still no cure or nothing that truly slows the progression of the disease down. So we're still trying to raise awareness on our end. Obviously, Quinny's going on to study neuroscience. So I'm going to pass it on to him now because he's a smart one.
So my dad passed away when I was only 7 years old. And working with this film crew really showed me that there was someone out there who cared, someone who was looking out for us. Since to me, I felt all alone. I had my brother, I had my mom, and I had our close-knit group of friends. But other than that, it was fighting a battle that I know nothing about and our family knew nothing about. And with the help of this crew, I was able to have a support group, someone who cared, someone who was helping, someone who wanted to help. And that was truly amazing. And ever since then, I've tried to work with the St. Peter's ALS Center and joining you guys again with this film crew and to really raise awareness and do what you guys did in helping. And it's really made a big difference and a huge impact on the whole ALS community. And I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you too, Quinn, and that you're going into a field to try to make a difference even more now.
I hope so.
I think there's lots of big things for you. Not just your height, everything. Okay, I want to introduce Kara Wallum. Her husband, Martin, lived with ALS for actually a very long time, right?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Donna. And it's so great to see you, Kelly and Quinn. I cannot believe how big you are, Quinn. What an
Your
amazing.
son too.
A little
my
Martin's
gosh.
not so little anymore
Yeah,
either.
little Martin's not so little.
And it's just really awesome that you're here, Quinn. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you guys. So I'm Kara Wallum. I was part of the film and like Kelly and her family. And I have a son who is now, he just turned 19 and we call him Little Martin, but Little Martin is now almost 6'3", I think. So our story is similar to the Reagan family. Martin and I have been we were together since 1993, and we were married in December of 2000. And about 6 months after we were married, Martin's symptoms started after a snowboarding accident. He hit his head really hard, and we were snowboarding up in northern Maine at Sunday River Ski Resort, and we didn't really know what was going on. He was fine. And basically he was fine, but shortly after that, and we can really pinpoint that one incident as kind of what I call the trigger. So shortly after that, Martin started experiencing slurred speech and difficulty swallowing. And we thought it was, lingering effects from the head trauma that he sustained from this snowboarding accident. And he had a helmet on. But he hit his head very hard. So it was shortly after that, I would say within a month, probably, he was experiencing some of the early symptoms. And for him, it was the bulbar onset. So we had never heard of ALS, never heard of nothing about it. We didn't know anything about it. At the time, we were 31 years old. And we went to see a neurologist, local neurologist here in New Hampshire. And pretty quickly, he sent us to Boston, and we went to a teaching hospital called St. Elizabeth's in Boston. And it was there that we heard the first words of ALS. And it was really hard. It was pretty devastating to hear. And still, we didn't know much about the illness. We had absolutely no idea what we were in for. So shortly after that, Martin, his symptoms continued to progress. They still had not made a diagnosis. They were suspicious, but for Martin, again, his onset was bulbar, so it was only in the upper part of his body. And eventually it started moving down. So he was experiencing weakness in his hands, opening jars. He couldn't button his shirts any longer, belts. I would have to help him. So we just really couldn't believe that this was happening, and still were in very much disbelief, thinking that it was, he was diagnosed with primary lateral sclerosis. And they said, well, maybe it will just stay as that because it's only in the upper body and it's not progressing yet down to the lower body. Well, over the course of the next year, it did. And it progressed and progressed. So Martin became very advanced in ALS, probably 4 or 5 years into the illness. He did decide to go on the vent. He was on the vent for about 14 years. Martin survived for 19 years with ALS. And it was just amazing. And honestly, I think he could have survived longer. But I will get to what happened with Martin. So he was on the vent. He was also on a feeding tube. He could no longer communicate verbally. He was using eye gaze technology or letterboard for probably about 14 years. So he was virtually 100, he was like 98% paralyzed for the last 14 years of his life. And he, and as you all know, the most challenging part of this illness is that the mind is fully functioning. He was so alive in his mind, and he just, every day he got up and he wanted to be active and part of our life. And he just had a very positive outlook, which just amazed me every single day that he was able to do that. And he really wanted to be part of our life and daily experiences with my son and I. So early on, Martin and we called him Big Martin and Little Martin. So early on, Big Martin and I, we had a pretty serious talk. I remember the night that we were talking, and he really decided that he wanted to live as long as he could, and he wanted to continue to have as normal of a life. So from that point on, I made it my mission to just continue our family life and to take him everywhere that I could. And we bought a van and we traveled up and down the East Coast. We did a 2,300-mile trip in our van. We drove up into Nova Scotia and up into Canada, Montreal, and then came back around. That was one of our really big trips. But it was wonderful having the van so that we could jump in the van and drive somewhere. His care was very involved, and it was overwhelming for me. The first 2 years, I, like Kelly, was caring for Martin, for my husband Martin, but also caring for a newborn. My son was born in 2003. So it was the first 2 or 3 years of the illness were really difficult. I didn't know if I was supposed to be awake or asleep. It was just nonstop. We didn't have any help in the beginning, and I was doing taking care of both my Martins, and little Martin started sleeping through the night and big Martin stopped sleeping through the night. So it was pretty intense. And every hour and a half, I would have to wake up and roll him. And, but anyway, as you all know, those just daily challenges to get through your day, and it never stops. Next morning you get up and do it all over again. Martin, before ALS, Martin was a very active outdoorsman. He loved any sort of adventure, everything, every season. He loved to do something, whether it was hunting or canoeing, fishing, hiking. We were very into winter sports. And one winter I was up north at one of our mountains where we skied often. And I came across an adaptive sports program, and they were just wonderful people, and they really embraced Martin. And we became very involved with adaptive sports up in northern New Hampshire. And Martin was so just passionate about being back outdoors that he wanted to do something to give back, some sort of fundraiser. So he said that the one thing that he really wanted to do was to be able to go back to the summit of Mount Washington, which, if any of you are from the East Coast, Mount Washington is the biggest peak, I think, east of no, I guess there's one other one, but it's a really big mountain. It's the second biggest one on the East Coast. Crazy weather up there. We used to hike and ski up there in the early spring. This was Martin's dream to go back up there. And so through our adaptive program, we were able to get back on Mount Washington, and we pushed him to the summit of the mountain. There's an auto road, and we went 8 miles. We pushed him to the summit. And this hiking adventure was so successful that it started a whole chain of events. Other people wanted to do it, other adaptive athletes. So we ended up turning this into a huge fundraiser for the adaptive sports program. And we did this hike every summer for the last 12 years. And after Martin passed, we did a memorial hike last summer, and we spread his ashes at the summit of Mount Washington. So he's at his favorite place. So we came, I just wanted to share really quickly how we came to know Donna was through it was a similar sort of event that Kelly explained in Manchester, New Hampshire. There was I don't even remember exactly what it was. It was some sort of show where they had different companies and different events, but kind of geared towards outdoors, sporting equipment and that kind of thing. And we had heard about it on the radio. And shortly after that, I got a phone call from the ALS Association asking if Martin, who was already involved in adaptive sports, asking if he would be interested in connecting with these people from New Jersey who were coming up and doing this crazy thing of hiking all these peaks in New Hampshire. And immediately they thought of Martin, and that he would love to be part of this. So we went to the event in Manchester, and that's where we first met Josh. And Donna's nephew, I believe, was also there. Michael, he was there, and with Josh, and immediately we made this amazing connection with them and with Josh, and it was just love at first sight. And immediately we knew that we had to be part of this. And Martin was just over the moon. He was so excited to be able to do something that was going to help others and just raise awareness. We were also very connected with our ALS association, and we were involved in a program where we would speak in different schools around the state, just trying to reach the kids and talk to, raise as much awareness as we could throughout our state. So with this connection, it was just perfect. And we were so anxious and looking forward to, being able to do one of the hikes with the guys. We spent quite a bit of time with the film crew, the first film guy, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Alex. Williams.
So Alex and Josh, they came to our home. We spent quite a bit of time with them. Alex went to school one day with little Martin, and we went to an after school event. So we basically had the camera following us around for a day. And it was really great to just, so Martin could just be part of something so big like that. And honestly, I think that film was I know that was the most favorite thing that he has ever done. And the connections that he made through that film were just very close to his heart. And it kind of combined his two loves, being outdoors and being with the people that he adored. So we were really fortunate to be able to be part of that film. And it's something that we'll never forget. So thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Kara. And I do have to do a side note here, and I don't mean to bring anyone down, but Josh, who was in the film, was killed in a motorcycle accident a year ago. Devastating for me and my entire family and everyone associated with the film. So in his memory, though, I couldn't just he did so much for the ALS community. I mean, he was one that traveled all over the country with my son, showing this film, raising money for families. We started a grant in his memory called the Joshua Valentine Memorial ALS Grant. And every year we award that to an ALS family to go anywhere they want to go. And we pay for the entire trip. Whatever they consider an adventure, they get to choose it, and we take care of all the expenses for it. That's
I
how
have
we
to say, Donna, that is the most perfect thing that you could do to honor Josh. I know that he is so happy that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And as a quick side note, I forgot, I didn't actually explain that Martin had passed. He survived 19 years with ALS, and he passed away October of 2020. And he was 50. So thank you.
A lot of loss the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm just in awe of both of you for sharing your stories. And I know for me and some of the other people on here can tell you their experience, but it's one thing to get diagnosed. That in itself is a day that, has a lot of emotions and turmoil and confusion. And then it's another day when you're the first time you recognize the disease outwardly. Like Kelly was talking about being at that event and seeing ALS, or being diagnosed post ice bucket challenge. It seems like ALS is more in the conversation, but there's always that time when you're just rocking along and ALS smacks you in the face. Then I think there's also a day that you find how to make your disease more than devastating. And I realized after last week, I never once mentioned her ALS story. And for me, finding her ALS story, which we're a group of women, there's over 40 of us now, we're in multiple countries, that were diagnosed with ALS under the age of 35. And so this group for me really turned what happened to me into something I could do for others and do for the community and be a part of, and not just be a victim. And we are so thankful to the various sponsors of this organization or of this film festival. And we are working with Donna and the Heart Foundation to raise money for a wellness retreat for our ALS touring group. We found as a group we'd like to get together and drink adult beverages. And so we are working towards offsetting the cost of that endeavor, getting together in Madison, Wisconsin in October of this year. So we're thankful for the opportunity to not have all of our ducks in a row, but to be able to lean on organizations like TDI and Brainstorm and Park, and just be able to do what we feel called to do and what makes us happy, without having to have all the paper filed.
Donna, what was the connection like for you when they were up there? Were you getting daily phone calls? How were you tracking everything?
Yeah, they did. They had a satellite phone up there, but there were certainly, places. So just to preface that, what Josh and Kirk did was never done before. To hike the 48 highest peaks in the White Mountains in one shot had never been done before. This was the first time they ever accomplished that, and that was ever accomplished by anyone.
By one shot, I was just going to explain, Donna, because that is a really remarkable feat. Basically, they got out of their cars the first day and never got back in until the end. And they stuck it out through some pretty bad weather, lots of rain for some particular reason that month of October. So it was just remarkable, really, what they did, not only climbing the mountains, but having to get to the mountains.
Yes. And I think you saw in the film at one point, Josh said, rain, sleet, and snow, and it's noon, and it's only noon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was in communication with them. And then Bob, the one that started with them, the older gentleman that didn't finish, he went back up and met with them, with Cara and Martin, to go to take that. And Lindsay Watkins, I don't know if any of you know Lindsay Watkins.
Glynis and I were just texting. I didn't realize that she
Yes.
was in it. Glynis was just texting me and I didn't notice it. I've seen the film twice and I didn't realize.
Yeah, well, at the time, she was a ranger.
Last year.
She was a
Or-
ranger in the White Mountains at the time. And that's how we got connected with her. So really it was really just Josh and Kirk. Once Bob left, the entire time. I mean, even Alex, the filmmaker, was only, as I said, only went 5 days out of the 3 weeks they were there. So the majority of the filming was done by them. Those two guys together. So yeah, pretty. And then actually Kirk, a couple of weeks after that, did a through hike of the Appalachian Trail by himself. So, Josh, I don't know if any of you know Bear Grylls. Yeah, Josh was his safety coordinator.
Oh, jeez.
For all of his, the celebrities he would take all over the place. And yeah, so Josh worked for him. He climbed Kilimanjaro. He did whitewater rafting. I mean, he was, to Cara's point, an adventure grant. There's no better way to honor his memory than to send somebody else on whatever they consider their adventure.
Amazing.
And that family this year is going to be doing a cruise to Greece and Italy that we're taking care of for them. They've always wanted to go, and you put things off, and now the husband has ALS, and they just want to go before he can't go. So,
Hey, Donna, so what was Bob's reason for doing the hike with the young guns? Because that was really, I don't know, inspiring or crazy is the word I want, or maybe a little bit of both, but it was
a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So he was the CEO of the Y that I worked at, and he got wind of this whole thing and decided he wanted to do it, and that he was going to train with these boys. But don't ever tell him I told you this. He didn't train at all, which is why he, and you saw in the film where Josh and Kirk are kind of talking like, what are we going to do here? Like they had an agenda. They had how many peaks they had to do every day, and Josh was a planner. So, yeah, I mean, it just wasn't, I mean, he did well for I think he did that. He was in for a week, I think.
I think he did
And-
incredibly well. Yeah.
So, he
He
knew that
gave
when it was
me
time to go.
anxiety. I was very sweaty during the bomb.
I think he
portion
gave Josh
of-
and Kirk a little anxiety too while they were out there with him,
I bet.
especially hiking in the pitch black with headlamps on, up some of those peaks. And I have to tell you this, no one else knows this, but the part where they're crossing over the river?
Yeah.
Kirk had no pants on.
Oh,
He didn't
that
want
was
them to
smart.
get
And he
wet.
kept him dry. Yeah,
Yes,
that
he
was
didn't want them to
smart.
get wet.
Yeah.
They kind of blurred that part when he was crossing. So. But yeah, it was, it was just I just say it was a labor of love. But Josh, when he would go and speak, he was just amazed at the ALS community. I mean, it amazed him. Like one of the reasons he wanted to do it, he said, the way your father handled that disease, like I could have never handled that disease that way. Like he was always had a smile on his face. He would talk up a storm to everybody, but nobody could understand a word he said. But they just acted like they could, because he was a fixture at a bar that my brother managed and everybody knew him. But Josh would always talk, at these screenings and raising money. We went to Temple University, Sarah Feldman, every university she's been at, we've gone and shown the film to her PT students. But he always said, what I always perceived as my own suffering, an ALS patient would gladly stand next to me if they could. Like when he was up on the White Mountains and freezing cold and it was snowing, and he said, that's not suffering. Like I can't complain about anything. And that was just, what he would talk to people. Like an ALS patient would gladly stand up there with me if they could, and would prefer to be standing up there with me in the freezing cold and snow and ice than to not be able to do that anymore. So, he really did a lot. And he didn't, he used to give up going to work and not get paid. I mean, we didn't have the money to pay him at the time. But he would just, to where Cara met him and where Kelly met him, that was all on his own to go up there and, promote the film and try to raise awareness of ALS. So, but the film has served us well. As I said, we've used it a lot. We only released it to the public like 2 or 3 years ago because we were using it, all the time for fundraisers. So, right now, for HARC, it's, we do give small grants. I actually got a very large grant back in December of 2021, $100,000 grant. By February, 90,000 of it was gone by February. And that's over 40 people needing help. And then, when people call me and, the biggest thing, we've given out 16 vans that we either help raise the money or they're donated to us. And then, if one family is no longer using it anymore, we pay to fix it, pay to ship it to somebody else. But caregivers are a huge need. Home modifications are a huge need. And the van, so that's where, I suggest that we do a fundraiser through HARC, supposed to GoFundMe, because if it's through HARC, it's tax deductible. People can write a check and get a tax deduction, and we don't take anything from it. I have 6 going on right now online for people, for ALS families. So, the caregiver thing it's a big one because no organization.
How are you addressing that need when you say caregivers? Because obviously we know that is a huge need. How are you addressing that?
Honestly, it's just, we'll help you do a fundraiser is the only way we can address it. I have somebody that just called me today. She's paying $2,000 a week.
Oh my God.
For caregivers for her brother.
Wow.
Because he lives by himself.
Yeah.
But the sad thing for me is when I say this is what we can do for you, and their response, but I have to be honest, it's still going to depend on your network of people to support it. Like
Right.
I put these fundraisers out there and all HARC supporters continue to donate. And then a lot of times people say that won't work. We don't have that kind of support. So
that's a huge problem. I really think, Donna, that one of the best ways to help that issue, because we were shorthanded always, is to educate people, because I think once people are educated to understand how great the need is, to really understand what a family needs and to care for that person with ALS, it never ends. And it can be so intense sometimes. It's not a job that any one person can ever do.
No.
I really find that a lot of people don't really understand just how desperate, we are for caregivers. And I think, that is another thing that I believe this film can really do, and just educating people about the illness, that it is very intense and it's a huge need, and, for the safety of the patient and for the family.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I always have, I even have people that sometimes they have the money, they can't find the right person.
Mhm.
Or they stop showing up, or they don't show up, or, it's,
Right.
it's a really big need. I honestly don't know what to do, other than the fundraisers to help them pay for it if they have someone.
Yeah.
And Kara, like, I feel blessed that I was actually able to care for Andrew physically at that point, because I was in my 40s. I think about people that are older and physically not able to care, because it is a physical labor of love.
It is.
Physical and
Every single day. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
And you're right, for an older couple to have to manage that together on their own, it's impossible.
Can't imagine it. I cannot imagine it. But that is one, if I have any regret for my care for Andrew, is that I did not have more in-home support to assist with his care, because I did the best I could with the tools I had. But there was, as you know, there's times that you cannot do it all. You physically, emotionally cannot be up every half an hour. It's a newborn with an adult mind that, they need their hand moved, their body moved, positioned, fed, toileted. So caregiving that's where I would hope that we could get more support.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like Donna said too, it really has to be the right kind of person, because it takes a huge amount of patience.
Yeah.
I mean, beyond the normal person's capacity, really, it does.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more of a challenge to find the right people to do that kind of work. It's not easy.
No.
I want to read from the chat. Desi says, woo, her ALS story, woo. Cindy said, I love Bob. I cheered him on. And in reference to the Adventure Fund, that is an amazing gift for families. Desi said, legend, I believe, talking about Bear Giles. Correct me, Desi, if I'm wrong. Carol says, seriously. Mary Kate says, so true to your mission. Thank you. And Cindy asks, is there a state that has better financial assistance for caregivers, or is it all dependent on personal insurance?
I believe it's all dependent on personal insurance. I don't even think Medicare, I think Medicare only does 6 hours a week. I don't know about Medicaid. I mean, my dad, because of being a veteran, the Office on Aging and the VA were working together and paid for 38 hours a week of home health aides for him. But they also will pay a family member. Like if a family member is taking care of the ALS patient, they can get paid as well. I mean, this was back in 2009. I don't know if that's still, and that was only in New Jersey. So I don't know if that's a question.
My dad was in Virginia Beach, and he was a veteran, and he had 70 hours a week, and they could pay my stepmother if needed, if he had gotten to that point. But he had nurses 7 days a week, 10 hours a day from June until he passed in October of 2020.
When did your dad pass?
He passed on October 22nd.
Oh my gosh, very close to my husband was October 9th.
So 70 hours is pretty amazing because I think in
Yeah.
California, we got 4.
Yeah, I
we-
always,
Oh.
when
Well,
I
'cause a
talk to
veteran,
families,
you're a
I
veteran.
feel,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I always
VA.
feel kind of
Yeah.
guilty when we talk to families because we don't know, like, that aspect, like you had mentioned, Donna, you cut through the red tape of the VA, and then once you have the services, you have the services.
Yes.
And so for us, we never had to worry about that. We had a lot of help. And I think about families that don't have any, or like you said, you had 4 hours. Like, I don't know. I don't know how I'm in awe of all of you for taking care of your husbands and family members and yourselves and your loved ones. Like, I can't imagine. I can't.
Yeah, the woman who called me today that, is paying 2,000 a week for her brother. Her mother has dementia. Her brother has ALS, and she's doing it all by herself.
Oh my,
And
Yeah.
worked full time. She was on her way to the Philippines for work and trying to do all this. So she, she said somebody wants to make a sizable donation, but they won't do it to a GoFundMe and they can't give it directly to him. Like, can you help? I said, yes. Start a fundraiser for your brother, and that's how they can donate.
awesome.
Desi's out in Long Island. She says all the agencies around her and their staff, which is the same here in Texas. I think is the same kind of everywhere. You can have as many hours as you want, but nobody to work on.
Yeah, that's a big problem too. Even if you have it, you can't find reliable people.
Mhm.
So what I think is remarkable is those of you who have the courage and the strength to stay in the fight after your loved one has passed, because it's painful. It's really hard. Like, it's like you found the boogeyman under your bed and it's real and you've lived it, but you're still here fighting. And so that's so important because that's the only way we can change it, is have the legacy. Because what happens in ALS is I see, and I've worked in so many different diseases in my 30-some year career, is that I see, in ALS, it's rinse, wash, repeat. Rinse, wash, repeat, because we do the same thing because people leave. They can't stay. And I'm not criticizing the people for leaving, because believe me, there are some days I think, oh, I just want to go back and work in oncology because they approve lots of drugs over there and it's easy. But, no, I'm serious. I'm like, I just want to go.
I know.
I know.
I just want to go back to oncology because I could have 10 drugs, but or 100 drugs. But I'm like, no, I'm not leaving ALS because damn it, all of you deserve drugs. And it's just so frustrating to me. So I just have to say, Donna and Glennis and Megan and, all of you who are on the call that I didn't mention, that, Cara and all of you who are staying in, we need you. Nicole Simber is another person that stays in and motivates me every day she's like, you got to keep fighting. We can't stop. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, and thank you.
I know Andrew always said there's no survivors to do victory laps.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's up to the family that's often depleted emotionally, physically, mentally, but we have to keep fighting.
But what if there could be survivors? There was the first survivor there could be survivors.
Yes.
That's our hope.
Yeah,
I see a number of them on here that I'd
that's
like to
maybe hope too.
nominate. I nominate a bunch of people on here as survivors.
Exactly.
Well, I think what it is like Pat Quinn put something on Facebook one day that said you don't get ALS till you get it. And it's not the ALS community we have to educate, it's the non-ALS community to donate to the ALS community. And that's what I don't see. People.
We all
still don't know
try,
what it
but
is.
it's
No, I
hard.
know. It's
Yeah.
very hard. It's very hard. I try too. It's,
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that I know that see my fundraisers on Facebook all the time. And I know they have the money, but it's either that's never going to touch me. I'm never going to be affected by that disease. It's too rare. So, or, I went to that's why we like to show the film so we can tell people even at these fundraisers, yes, you helped this family, but they need a lot more help. This is not the last time they're going to need you. So you have to be there for them for the long haul. And whether if all you want to do is write a check, that's fine. But keep writing them if you have it, because they're going to need it. And I think that's where people, that's why I really like to do the in-person fundraisers, because people come and they haven't seen the person in a long time, and they see a person who was, doing all the kinds of things like Martin was doing, and then they see somebody in a wheelchair with a trach and a feeding tube. And then they get it. This is what happens with ALS.
Right.
So
I know it's really hard for, for people that are living the disease, that are living with it every single day. But one thing that Martin really took to heart was getting out into the community and showing people what ALS is. And it definitely made an impact in our community, in our town. From a very, young age, our son, little Martin, his friends knew his dad was in a wheelchair and he had an illness called ALS. And just, by putting a face, putting a family onto the illness, I think it made such a big impact. And like I said, even though it's so hard to do that, I was just amazed really by Martin and his wanting and desire to do that, to educate. And by what better way than to be out there doing it in person.
absolutely.
Yeah, demystify. Well,
Yeah.
I would say there are a lot of, people with ALS on this call that get out there quite a bit and
Yes.
really live and push to help. It's truly amazing. And also, Sunny, we're at 9, so maybe you want to acknowledge the fact that we have representation from the next 2 films on here tonight.
Yes, of course. If you have any other questions, throw them in the chat. We'll get to them or we'll follow up with them. As we mentioned, this is a festival, so this is week 3. Week 4, we're meeting on Monday, May 23rd, and Katrina Hawking is going to be my co-host. We're going to be discussing the film, The Theory of Everything. So add that to your watch list this week and come with all your questions. I can't wait to talk to Katrina more about real life versus film life and all the amazing work she's doing with the ALS Association Evergreen chapter and just what it's like to be married into such a royal family. And then the following week, to wrap up our series, we are doing Trans Fatty Lives. I was gently corrected for saying the title of the movie incorrectly. So Patrick, I apologize. And Patrick O'Brien's on the call, and he and Michelle Dupree are going to be the co-hosts that last week to wrap up the film festival. So both movies to come were very awe-inspiring and eye-opening, and you get to see Patrick naked at the White House. Who wouldn't want to see that?
I'm sure he'd let you see him naked now if you just asked nicely.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
So both great things coming. So make sure those are on your calendar if they're not already. Monday the 23rd and Tuesday the 31st. Same time, same place.
Cool.
And I won't be able to join you guys for those next 2. I am going to be, I'm going to California, but then I'm going up to Alaska to join Andrea Pete as she completes her 50th marathon up there. So have a blast without me. These
Hopefully,
are,
when we do this again in the future, we'll be able to show Andrea.
that's right, right. That's right.
And we have another girlfriend in the Herrera story that's putting one together, showing Solano. And so, yeah, I think the true essence of this film festival is it going beyond this call. And so something we can look forward to in the months and years to come, to keep coming together and keep raising awareness for ALS.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing this, Sunny and Carol.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Quinn and Kelly.
Just to clarify,
Dan's raising his hand.
Oh, Dan.
yeah, I was gonna do it, the technical way, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. Sonny, you said that it's next Monday, the 23rd?
Yes.
So the website says the 24th.
Yeah, that's what I thought, Sunny. Either way is good for me.
Oh, wait. Yeah, it is.
I
saw
thought-
it. See, that's why y'all are here to keep me in line. Yes, we did the 24th. You had a schedule.
I did, and then it changed because I thought we were going to be traveling, but my kids have COVID instead.
Oh, Katrina, I'm sorry.
It's very mild. They're
Good.
teenagers and they're vaccinated, but we will not be going out of town next weekend. So Monday or Tuesday works equally well. We'll stick with Tuesday, which is what
Okay.
it says on the schedule. Thank you.
It's the 24th. And I'll make, I think I've been pumping it out incorrectly, so I'll.
Okay.
It's whatever Dan put in the press release. We're not going
Yeah.
against that.
Well, remember when we were doing it, we had to change it because we had shifted it to the Tuesday. That's what made me think
It's
of it.
Victoria Day, or I think it's Victoria Day. It's a Canadian holiday.
Indeed.
We were going to be out of town, but now we're not. So.
And I'll send you all the graphics from FTP as soon as they sent them to me this afternoon. They're very nice. So hopefully we can promote it out there. So
Thank you.
yeah, and I started watching the movie today with my mom. So we're going to finish it when we get off.
I have to warn you, my perspective might be a little bit different than anyone else's. When I watched it for the first time, a producer came up from California and they said that we laughed and cried in all the wrong places.
Oh,
Love
that's
it.
interesting.
Love it.
That's interesting. That's cool. I'm sorry.
Because
I'm
of
gonna
course
miss
we
that.
knew the whole story. So what we thought was sad, other people thought was funny, and what we thought was funny, other people thought was sad.
Yeah. Well, Mary Kay, I dare you to watch Patrick's film with your mother.
I haven't watched it yet, but I might. You're like, look, she's 89. She's progressive. She'll do it. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be
can't wait
awesome.
to hear
I can't wait. I
fact,
haven't watched
so-
it. And Michelle Dupree has been driving me crazy, and I've always meant to watch it. And I don't know. I just have a few things that I do during the day, but I'm definitely gonna watch them. No, I'm really gonna watch it. It's on my list.
No, I'm laughing at the fact that, yes, I am aware you have a few things to do during the day.
Okay.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the insider takeaways from Patrick's film as well. What landed and what turned out differently than expected. It's
It's going to be an
very
incredible
eye-opening.
conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Being
Thanks,
here.
everybody. Thank you, Sunny.
Yeah,
Thank you,
You're
everybody.
Thank
blessed
you.
to have you guys part of our family. And whether you like it or not, we are so thankful that y'all have chosen to stay in the fight, and look forward to next week on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.